Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Today is Thursday, October 3rd, 2024. Our goal here is to review the market generated information in a holistic fashion. We're intimately following the auctions narrative of both ES and NQ. If we have time, we'll add additional commentary and theorize at the end. There is a down recording of the market today. Please check it out if you have some time. All right, let's get started. So we'll start off with our typical questions. Where is the market coming from and what is price trying to accomplish? So we'll look at the NASDAQ today. We'll actually start here. No particular reason. I just feel like it. It's really not much to talk about. Same situation. We are bullish on the highest time frame, so on and so forth. Same thing with the intermediate. Bears tried to keep price a lot lower, but that doesn't appear to be the case. We are making higher highs and higher lows from what we can see. In the daily and more recent time period, bears have been trying to establish some pressure, but we do need to remember that all this is still done within this impulse candle. It took us multiple days to close below it, and now that we're below it, we're more just moving sideways opposed to continuing lower. If anything, it's higher lows each of these 3 days, and then they're starting to possibly do it's another higher high for today. So really, the goal for the buyers for the NQ, they really want to make a higher high and make a higher low, and that's exactly what happened. Though this is still a very big bear flag consolidation with increasing volume, which is the same situation um, here and all this here, even down here as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more rotation to the downside. But ideally, they want to protect this candle here from the September 19th. Really same situation here, except we're near all-time highs. They really just want to get back above this 5 daily SMA. Same thing for the NQ. Get above this 5 SMA. There was no higher high for today for the ES, but there was a higher low. So again, they wanted just to kind of get above and protect the low. So they accomplished about half of it. But bulls are still in control. We're still kind of dealing with this impulse candle from the 19th, which is the day after FOMC. So buyers are still in control. Ideally, they just want to build volume sideways and try to grind their way back up higher. Looking at the actual catalyst that we had, it was very much light for the earnings. Again, not too much going on. We did have the initial jobless claims, PMI, ISM services, and then the factory orders. And then we had Kashkari speaking with Bostic as well a little earlier in the day. We'll look at the footprint, and we can see that volume is increasing a little bit. Again, one of the highest that we, not one of the highest, but I mean, it's definitely higher than what we've seen relatively opposed to Monday's big drop. With actually, I think this was actually October. But anyways, so volume ended up being about a normal shape day. You can see a lot of sellers in here. The volume being about a 500,000 and the minimum being 5,500, and that's about where we finished to the downside. So sellers had control and stayed in control for the majority of the time. With the range being about 262, so a bit light of range, but sellers are still really hanging in there. They didn't finish with the best positioning, with price closing above them, but they're really trying to keep price down. Um, yeah, we can get a little more context later on. Looking at the S&P 500, same situation here, a bit lighter for the day on the range, being about 50 points, right at 48, same as yesterday actually. The volume, this too here is increasing a little more than what we've seen over the relative recent past, but a bit lower than what we saw a couple of days ago on Tuesday. Same situation with the sellers. We're about negative 27K for the minimum, and we finished somewhere around that ballpark with sellers being in control for the majority of the day. It didn't feel like it earlier in the session, uh, but again, we can look at the details shortly. Speaking of details, sector tracker finished about negative 18 basis points. So again, not too much happened here. When you look under the hood, you'll see discretionary is really kind of taking a hit over the past couple of days. Definitely not over the 5 day, No, yeah. They're actually leading to the downside over the past 5 days, alongside materials. So this really hasn't been the best showing for consumer discretionary. Even taking a sell from the staples and healthcare, which they haven't been doing too well over the past 5 days either. Yeah, they're down a whole percent. And financials had a good day yesterday, but gave back, a fair amount of their gains yesterday. So it was really technology that kind of saved the day, and it appears to be, I think, just the chips, if I recall. So definitely Nvidia, a little bit of AMD. Yeah, everyone else just kind of finished around break even for the most part. So not the best day overall. Very much carried by technology, and not the best look as we head into non-farm payroll. So we'll leave the speculation out for now. All right, so we'll go back to the NQ since we're just going to start there today for whatever reason. Notice that the NQ did indeed burst through their singles a little bit. So really not too much excursion. And that was from the 20K 80s to the 20K about, let's call it 110. So again, they were able to eat up some of that. So we'll go ahead and clean up that just a wee bit. So solid job for the buyers to hit that little high water mark there. But what's interesting is that this is between some of these other is between some of the structure here. So I'm not sure if this is like excess or this is called like a weak high. I'm not sure the exact name, but it's not like this was at the end of a particular day. This was like in the middle, and we failed to get back above. So again, we'll look at this in real time. I think some of that was from news. I believe Biden was speaking, but again, we'll leave out the fundamentals. So essentially, not much has happened. We are just building volume sideways. As we can see here, this is just a normal shaped day, and this is the right where the majority of the volume has been happening all week. And this is just filling in the gaps from the prior month. So again, it's something we've been talking about, so we won't belabor it here. Same situation for the ES, except we're just near all-time highs, except they did not hit their singles. So ES a bit weaker, and we are doing the majority of our volume within the former FOMC zone. And we're starting to hit through this support here near these 30s. So again, the more we beat down on this zone, it's a good chance that we find some kind of excursion here. You want to look for a possible retest, maybe burst through a little bit more. And then we may see some continuation to take us under these 5700s. So again, it's a bit speculative, but as of right now, we're just building volume sideways within this FOMC zone, just filling in some of these gaps from the prior structure that we kind of just zipped through from the prior month. So again, this makes sense as we head into the non-farm payrolls. Again, 5,700 is going to be a big, massive number, and you can see that's where the majority of the volume is for the composite. And then the same for the last month. You have a big high volume node in this area here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we find our way back to this 5,700. Now, what we do after that, who knows? And I think that's what's going to be the biggest clue to where we'll be headed next week, possibly. So we'll look at the same situation here for the NQ, but with the 138-minute candles, literally just moving sideways. So a little bit excursion above us, so that's nice. But for the most part, just kind of moving sideways. So say what you will about that. And again, all this is moving sideways as a bear, as a bear flag. So again, this isn't the best showing for the NQ, who's already a bit weaker. For the ES, you definitely want to take that with a grain of salt. But same situation, drop and then consolidate. So not too much to look at there. We already talked about it. The fact that this was more of a compression day is what it feels like. Really not too much. And we've been talking about it for the past week or two now. We have our big move in the first hour or so, and then we just kind of just bear flag for the most part. A little bit above, a little bit below, but for the most part, we just finish just somewhere in the middle. So I mean, that was the NQ. So it's literally the same thing for the ES. We have our big hour, you just move a little bit sideways there, a little bit above, a little bit below, but we find our way in the middle. So again, not too much to really expect there. Um, We can look at a few of the intricacies on the 3 minutes. So we'll go ahead and take a look there. Go ahead and finish strong with the NQ. Let's see. So we had our Sunday session here. We had our high to low reversal day on Monday to finish the month strong. Chop sideways, starting the new month. And this is where we had our bear flag. And essentially, we've been bear flagging for past couple days, even into the overnight session. We just went down, went up, and then just really opened near the low point of that range, which was the IB mid for the prior day. So again, I just want to give a little context. All this is within the bear flag from Tuesday. So again, as we have our overnight session where we shot down yesterday and pushed up to finish strong, we had some sort of continuation in the overnight, but for the most part, we really just sold off. Bear flag, sold off, tried to rally into about that halfway point, and then pulled back down. So again, this was a bit of a bearish open. And as we have that information, we start off the session with an open drive and squeeze all the way up through the PMIs as we head into the 7 a.m. data. Again, we did have initial jobless claims, but it really wasn't much that happened there. Even the little impulse candle got reversed, which added more to the bearish context that we were bringing into the day, if you will. So as we start our session and we have an open drive and finish strong, the 7 a.m. data kind of pushed us through this overnight high, pulled back and gave one more thrust upwards, and really couldn't get much more above that. And then notice that high that we created was above the prior day's high. So we're completely making a new high, and we're starting to go through those singles. As we're busting through some of those singles, there's no kind of continuation. And then we had Biden speaking that caused a bit of an impulse candle lower. This was a bit more violent on the ES. But looking at the NQ, we reclaimed this 5 smooth and average, retested this overnight high, failed, and pushed back through the initial balance mid. And we just really just chopped sideways for the longest. Excuse us, do this. We chopped sideways between the IB high and IB mid for the longest. We had a small look below, found our way back into this midpoint, and then essentially just kind of balanced between the open and then that midpoint. So again, not really too much happened. So same situation, impulse higher, and then we're essentially just consolidating within this whole range. I mean, we haven't had really much of a true trend day where OTF is just kind of pushing price. So I think that says something to the current regime that we're in. So say what you will about that. So again, fairly simple, push upwards, not many red candles. Once we got above the overnight high, couldn't sustain. We had some news that pushed us below, fell at the overnight high retest, and then we just essentially just two-way traded for the rest of the day. Did a little bit of trading above the IB mid, a little bit below, and we finished at the midpoint. So again, fairly simple, fairly simple. Looking at the actual trades for the NQ specifically. We had our push up, say what you will about this. We had our big engulfing candle that pushed us through the high. And this was happening at the same time for the ES, so you can possibly say a correlation play, but you know, it is what it is there. We chopped sideways there. So I mean, you'd have been able to get in here, but this is a bit early for my system. No real longs were provided here, as this was just straight up trend until we reached that overnight high. Once you reach that overnight high, and we had this impulse candle here, you can't expect to catch this, nor should you want to. But being able to see that in real time, and again, you can watch that on the DOM, but for us to be able to see that in real time and then see this full session VWAP retest, close above and pushing, and as soon as we reach this overnight high again, we get kicked back lower, and then this red candle, we really need to be looking short on this candle here. So again, that's just more reference for myself. And that's the same thing as our 5 smooth and average play, except in the reverse order, where we reclaim here and go through the IB high and some of the, and then the RTH VWAP. We have our pullback, can't get to the open of that candle, and then we just have more of a continuation. So break, retest, continuation. Fairly simple on the NQ. A bit tougher to do in real time by all means, um, but it makes sense in real time and in hindsight. Same situation for the ES. We're just bear flagging, but again, we are kind of dipping below multiple times here. Not so much for the NQ. NQ is a little more sturdier, but you want to take that with a grain of salt because they're both a bit weak. And ES is near their all-time highs. So again, we had our initial jobless claims engulfed, which just aided to the downward trend that we were seeing as we started the session. So again, very weak from what we were seeing. Again, you can look at the replay in real for the recap of it. But they was pushing a little higher here and then got engulfed, chopped sideways for a little bit on the 3 minutes. They ended up being engulfed here and reclaiming the 5 smooth and average and the RTH VWAP. Looking at the 1 minute candle, you definitely had an entry there. And then if that's too early for you, I can understand how you would want to wait, given why you wouldn't want to look for longs as we're below prior IB high and below, we're still bear flagging from Tuesday's action. Same situation for that short as we pushed up. Notice the S&P 500 was never able to make a new overnight high, so say what you will about that. So their short was a little more tougher. You were a little more in thin air, if you will. But again, if we can break this down into a 1 minute, which we will shortly, is a little more clear, especially for this long and the short there. Other than that, none of this really would be anything you would look at. It's a lot clearer in hindsight given the two-way action that we're seeing. But in real time, I can see how, you know, this kind of looks like a buying opportunity to a degree. But same situation here. Went down lower, went up higher, went down lower, went up higher, went down lower. And then essentially we just closed sideways. So again, not really too much happened there. We finished in a balanced manner. We'll go ahead and bring this down into the 1 minute like I was saying. And again, if you just look at all this now, this is incredibly messy, and it was hard to get a good gauge on it in real time. Luckily, we were sitting out today, so I mean, I didn't want to be a part of this at all. This is the engulfment that I was talking about. We engulfed 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know, it's like 6 or 7 candles here, and reclaimed the 5 smooth and average and the RTH VWAP. Notice once we did reclaim, there was a brief pullback that pulled back down the majority of this candle and then reclaimed both of those levels again. That's definitely a buying opportunity there. You'll be able to have your entry, even if you got it a little late at, let's call it, 46. Even having your stop at the end of this candle, about 41.5, let's call that 5 points, targeting that high to at least get you a little more than a 2-to-1. So this is a part of my playbook. And then the same situation where you had that break, the reclaim, the retest, the failure, and then having your stop somewhere between here at the 60s to this, let's call it 66, targeting maybe like the low. So again, it's a bit of a confusing day. You really can't look for an inside out kind of trade. This is more from a from an outside in kind of trade, if that does make sense. Hopefully that makes sense, like in when I did it that manner. But again, this is I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill here. It really was very messy action. All this trading is for other people. It's not really too great for our system. All right, so we'll go ahead and cut that there. We're able to cut this a little short today. So how did the buyers do? Just like yesterday, we said that the buyers did a little better than what it looks like from a quick glance, but for the most part, I guess we'll give the buyers maybe like a good 4 or 5. They gave up a lot of territory. They had an opportunity to push through the singles on NQ, so I'll give them a 4. S&P 500 couldn't even reach their overnight high, and then they just made multiple lows while NQ only broke their low essentially just once after the initial balance. They both finished near their IB mid, so again, this would be like somewhat balanced, if you will. But for the most part, volume is increasing with each of these red candles. They're pushing down a lot lower. It's possibility that we may break out of that impulse candle from the 19th. So non-farm payroll is going to be tomorrow. So we'll have a lot more information and we can really finish this puzzle for the week and see where we'll be headed for next week, which is going to be the anticipated CPI, our first CPI post Fed rate cut. So I'll go ahead and leave it there. Again, solid day overall. Not really too much done. Really just building volume sideways, but a lot of nuances and intricacies that we're picking up doing this daily briefing. So enjoy the day. Take care.